You're tuned in to Ask the Master Auto Technician. Car questions? Get answers right now. Call 850-763-0555.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.
All right, good morning, everybody. This is James Morris. It's Wednesday morning. Well, it's not bright. It's just early. And one of the things, if you got a car question, pick up the phone, dial 850-763-0555. This show is pre-recorded. We do it every morning live at Fox 28, at James Auto Center at 6 to 6:30 a.m. right here on Fox 28. And so you can call. We're here to answer your questions. We'll answer your question, and we'll record it, and you can listen to it and watch it next week at the same time frame. But the reason we do that is because I don't have the 7-second delay in case someone calls and says something I'm not allowed to say on FCC, Federal Communications Commission. I won't get fined or, all these nasty things that happen to you because of the 7 dirty words. But one of the things that a lot of people out there don't think about is, don't realize is thinking outside the box is, or pre-recording our show a week is thinking outside the box, in my opinion, because we're allowed to be here live and we're allowed to take care of you and at the same time play within the rules. But sometimes you end up having to think outside the box when you work on cars. I have people come in all the time. They say, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've tried this, I've done this, we've done everything by the book and what we've been taught, and it still doesn't work. And I said, well, it's the same thing in life. I remember when I had a problem with my back or my shoulder, I couldn't sleep. I think 6 to 8 weeks I couldn't sleep. I went to doctors, chiropractors, did everything. They tried to put me on medicine, they did this, didn't get any better. I went to a dry needle doctor, which I call an acupuncturist. Don't ask me how it works. And in 2 days, I was much better. In 2 days, in 48 hours, I felt relief when I left the office, but within 2 days, I was able to function. That's thinking outside the box. Sometimes when you get a problem with a car, you have to think outside the box and start looking at things going, okay, I know this is good. I know this is good. I know all these things right here are good. Well, why won't it work? Why does it not work correctly? Why am I running too rich, or why am I running too lean? And that's sometimes when you have to step back and go, what other factors could be in it? I had a gentleman that up there in my property, I'm building my bee farm up in Calhoun County, and he had a Jeep. And he's working on it. He actually had a scanner, and I was kind of sitting here going, wow, you got a scanner? He said, yeah, I've been doing this and doing that. I've changed this part, changed that part, and then I opened the hood, and golly, he had just every part you can imagine been changed on that. And I looked at it, and I said, well, what is your problem? He says, well, it runs okay. I'm getting this lean code. And I've changed the oxygen sensors on the front and the rear, and I changed the throttle positioning sensor, and I changed the fuel pressure regulator, and I've changed the fuel pump, and I can't see any vacuum leaks, but I'm still getting this code for running lean. And I go, well, let's think how this works. I said, this is a Jeep. This is a Chrysler product, okay? So once you understand how Chrysler works, it makes it a lot easier. I said, what they do is they look at the rear oxygen sensor. And if that rear oxygen sensor is running slightly rich, it's going to throw a lean code. If that oxygen sensor in the rear is reading slightly lean, it's going to throw a rich code. And he looked at me like, how could that be? Well, Chrysler uses things a little differently. It looks at the rear oxygen sensor after the exhaust gases come through the catalytic converter to determine how much fuel the engine should be getting. So he said, you think that's what's wrong with it? Well, let's take a look at the front oxygen sensor. So he has a brand new oxygen sensor in this vehicle. There's nothing wrong with the oxygen sensor. It's brand spanking new. Nothing wrong with the rear oxygen sensor. It's brand spanking new. Everything works like it's supposed to. There's no misfires, nothing like that. And I said, okay, let's take a look, see what's going on. So he fired up, and I'm watching the front oxygen sensor. If I touch the throttle, the oxygen sensor goes fully rich and down like it's supposed to. But when the car is idling, when the car's just idling normal like it's supposed to, I look at the front oxygen sensor and it won't get above like 0.5, 0.6 millivolt. Remember, it's supposed to go between 0.2 to 0.9 millivolt. That's less than 1 volt. It's supposed to bounce back and forth. But at idle, it didn't bounce back and forth. And I said, this is a brand new oxygen sensor. He said, yep. And I said, okay. And if I just touch the throttle, it goes up. So I said, there's nothing wrong with the oxygen sensor. And I said, well, let's look at your rear oxygen sensor. And he said, well, it's flatlined around 7/7 of a volt. And I said, believe it or not, that 7/10 of a volt indicates that's actually running rich. That front oxygen sensor is running lean. It's registering lean as far as I'm concerned because it's around 0.5, never goes high. But the rear oxygen sensor is actually running a little richer than it should be. I said, what's probably going on, if you look at it real close, is your car has lots of miles on it. Your injectors themselves are not spraying a good pattern. Now, that's something that can be fixed without changing any parts. That can be done by cleaning the injectors while they're on the vehicle. They don't have to be removed from the car. There's machines out there. You hook the car up to it. It has its own pump in it. You put a chemical in it with gasoline. You start the car up on it. You wean it on there, so to speak, because when you first put it to it, man, it don't want to run a lot of times. They spit, they sputter, they misfire, all sorts of things. But finally, after about 10 minutes or so of keeping it feather the throttle where to stay running, it'll start idling on its own. And normally after about 30 minutes to an hour, it'll straighten up and the injectors will be spraying a pattern like they're supposed to. A lot of people don't realize that injectors nozzle patterns will not be like they're supposed to be. They're supposed to spray like a if you've got a car at idle, you got a very wide pattern. Your injector's spraying a very wide pattern, very wide. But if you push the throttle down, it narrows where it's almost like a stream. Well, what ends up happening when you're at idle, it's a very narrow pattern. You're spraying a pattern, but what ends up happening is you'll lose half the pattern where you're only getting maybe just a fraction of the amount of fuel you're supposed to be getting. Well, the computer says, hey, I'm running lean up here on this one. I'm not as rich as I'm supposed to be. And that's where you're getting that code, because it looks at the downstream oxygen sensor that's running rich. It goes, okay, it's slightly richer down there because we're dumping fuel down there, but we can't get the oxygen sensor to respond. So as far as the car is concerned, it thinks it may have a vacuum leak. But if you're a technician and you can look at the numbers, you'll realize it's not a vacuum leak, and you'll say, okay, what do we need to do? You're going to see that the injectors themselves aren't spraying a good pattern, and that's something that'd be corrected a lot cheaper than changing fuel pumps or changing all these other parts in here, just by doing preventive maintenance. That's something that needs to be done. Injector cleaning. Now, I know I got a lot of people out there going to disagree with me on this. I mean, that's fine. You can disagree all you want. But here's the reality. If you got a 5-gas machine, I can prove it to you. I can take 5-gas, well, most people, 99.9%, no one out there has a 5-gas machine, probably but me. I carry 2 of them here, one for each side of my shop. But the 5-gas machine, you can tell what's going on with the tailpipe, coming out the tailpipe, if you know what you're looking for. You can look at the amount of hydrocarbons, you look at the number of oxides of nitrogen, you can look at the amount of oxygen that's coming out. All those will tell you what's going on. But and that is the coup de grace of being able to make a good diagnosis. You say, this is what I think's wrong with it. But when you put up that tailpipe and you see what's actually coming out, you say, okay, this car's running rich or is running lean. And that'll give you an idea of what's going on, because it's either running correctly, where you got a 14.7 to 1 stoichiometric fuel ratio, which is, I know that sounds scientific and really over your head, but that's what you want: 14.7 parts air to 1 part fuel. That's perfect, and that's what it's trying to do by going rich and lean, very, very fast, keeping it that perfect stoichiometric fuel ratio. And you want to see the oxygen coming out the tailpipe less than 1%. But what we see when a car is running lean, for injectors that don't work right, we see the oxygen over 1%. We see the hydrocarbons not that high, matter of fact, because it's running lean, but we see our NOx, NOx, running a lot higher than it's supposed to, because the car combustion chamber is a lot hotter than it's supposed to because it's running lean. That's exactly right. When a car runs lean, it'll actually get a little hotter inside the combustion chamber, because it's got more air than it has fuel inside there. And boy, it's an incomplete combustion. It doesn't burn quite right, but next thing you know, you've got this thing, well, I'm running hotter than I should be, so you'll produce NOx, oxides of nitrogen. That's smog. And that's what your catalytic converter is supposed to get rid of, is the excessive amounts of hydrogen, carbon monoxide, and to decrease the oxides of nitrogen, and to produce nothing but water vapor and CO2 coming out your tailpipe. That's what we want to see come out your tailpipe. And that's why it's so very, very important when you are getting a diagnosis. A shop that is working on your car for a drivability problem whoever the shop is, they can actually look and see what the computer sees. Get that reading, get all that information, go and look at the engine and see what's happening, and then actually go to the tailpipe and see, does this information I'm seeing on my scanner match what's coming out my tailpipe? You'll be surprised at times. I've seen cars, I'm sitting there going, well, according to this right here, it's running extremely rich. And I put it on my 5-gas machine. I go, well, yeah, it is running rich, but things just don't seem to make sense what's going on. And then you can start to figure out what's going on. A lot of times I've seen cars running rich, and it really, the scanner was saying it was running rich, but what coming out the tailpipe, it wasn't rich. Matter of fact, it was just the opposite. I'm going, wow, its scanner says rich, that says lean. Could it be something contaminated? And remember, the job of the car's computer, its number one job, that's the job the catalytic converter is supposed to do, the number one job of the computer is to save the catalytic converter. I had that backwards. The number one job of the car's computer is to save the catalytic converter. Now everybody goes, what? Why is that? Well, because that catalytic converter is under an 8-year, 80,000 mile mandated government warranty, and the manufacturer wants that catalytic converter to last for 8 years, 80,000 miles, if not longer. Matter of fact, they'll last forever if everything's just right. And they offer the same warranty on the computer, and they offer the same warranty on the catalytic converter. So they want to make sure they last a long time. But that's its job, is to save that catalytic converter and make sure that the exhaust coming out the tailpipe is as clean as it possibly can be and not damaging the catalytic converter. And that's what it'll do. If it sees it running rich, it'll sit there and do everything it is possible to keep the fuel ratio down where it won't destroy that catalytic converter. And sometimes if you ignore it too long, it'll just make the car just act goofy till you shut the car off. I'm serious. The car just won't hardly run to save its life. You shut the car off, start it back up again, and it starts to cycle over again. I've seen that happen. Now people say, well, if I shut the car off, start it back up again, it runs fine for about another 15, 20 minutes, and then it starts acting up again. Well, that's because the car keeps telling you got problems. You got a check engine light on. It's saying you got a problem, and you keep ignoring it. And it just, that's the only way to know to get its attention is just say, okay, I quit. I have no idea where I'm supposed to be right now. If I don't shut off or go, and make you understand that you have no power, you can't go, and put you into limp mode, you're not going to get this fixed. So put you into limp mode, you scratch your head, you shut the car off, you go out, you open the hood, you kick the tires, you check the oil, you look at everything. I don't know what's wrong with it. You fire the car back up again, and it runs great. What the heck did I do to it? Well, you didn't do anything to it. You just gave it a chance to reconfigure where things are supposed to be. And that's kind of how it works. So, if you have a car question or want to know how your car works, how does this apply to my car? Why does my car shift hard? Why does my car take a long time to shift? Why does my car, where I have this light that comes on that has a lightning bolt in it, and then my car won't shift right? What does that mean? Does that mean I need a new transmission? No, normally it just means you got a bad sensor someplace. I've had more people come into my shop over the years that had to have transmissions rebuilt, supposedly, and there was nothing wrong with the transmission other than a bad input speed sensor or something simple like that. Anyway, so if you got a car question, give us a call, 850-763-0555. I've got Stephen Lang will be on the second part of the show will be calling, and he's going to be talking about, if I'm not mistaken, we were talking about selling your car or buying a car either on Craigslist or buying it on Facebook. And he's been experimenting in the last few weeks in both places. He's been on Craigslist, he's been on Facebook, and I think he's realized that there was a big difference going with Facebook. So I don't know. We're going to find out. We're going to save that for the show and see what he has to say. This is James Morris. If you got a car question, give us a call at 850-763-0555 every Monday through Friday from 6 to 6:30 right here on Fox 28 WPGX.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed.